Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blue Star Family's Money Mondays webinars. Sorry for our 2-minute delay. We had some technical issues, but we are very glad you could join us today. Our program is dedicated to conversations about finances in the military. I am your host, as usual. My name is Lydia Whitty. I'm the JP Morgan Chase Financial Wellness Deploy Fellow with Blue Star Families Campaign for Inclusion Initiative. This campaign is aimed at increasing diversity in leadership within the military and veteran service organization. I am an Army veteran spouse and an ardent advocate for foreign born military spouses and their families. Today, we are going to discuss financial literacy. Wow, that's a heavy one. I would like us to have an appreciation of how important financial literacy is in our day to day lives and just how much stress we can avoid by educating ourselves on the things that contribute to our financial wellness now and in the future. If we consider all the things that cause us stress in the military, I believe financial literacy can have a very huge impact in managing some, if not all of them. So, thank you for joining us and taking the step to understand this topic, as well as getting some some tips, tricks, and resources to help you in your journey to financial wellness. We are excited today to have some exciting panelists that do profound work in regards to finances in your military communities and outside the military community as well. I cannot wait to have them tell you all about their missions. So, without further ado, we have a huge panel today, and I don't want to take so much of your time. Please meet Yvonne Almond.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Yvonne. Yvonne is an executive vice president and community financial engagement officer with Town Bank. She has over 30 years in financial experience, primarily in banking, but also to include serving as an investment associate with the Economic Development Finance Corporation in Washington, D.C. She's an assessed auditor with FDIC as well. Yvonne received a Bachelor of Business Administration in Finance from the George Washington University and later graduated from the Hampton Road Civic Leadership Institute in 2006. She is a recipient of the 2014 NAACP Presidential Award, 2014 YWCA Women of Distinction Award, the 2019 Inside Business Women in Business Achievement Award, and is a 2021 recipient of the Humanitarian Award presented by Virginia Center for Inclusive Communities. Awesome, awesome. She is former chair of the Board of Commissioners of the VHDA, which stands for the Virginia Housing Development Authority, now VHA. And she's now a board member of 11 organizations, including Norfolk State University Foundation. We are so glad to have you, Yvonne. Throughout Yvonne's career, she regularly conducted credit and business financing seminars for many local colleges, schools, churches, and community groups, sharing the wealth of knowledge of financial knowledge accumulated throughout her career. And guess what? This is now her full-time job. Thank you, thank you so much for joining us, Yvonne.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Next, we have Andia Dynesen. That's a mouthful. Glad I got it right. Did I?
Hello.
Andia is the Executive Vice President for Communications and Operations for the Association of Military Banks of America, AMBA. Andia assists the President and CEO of AMBA in all aspects of communications, operations, and programs with a focus on providing financial readiness support to the military and veteran community through AMBA member banks. Andia maintains and manages the Veteran Benefit Banking Program, a partnership between AMBA and the Veterans Benefit Administration. Andia is also the Executive Director of AMBA Services, Inc., ASI, which is a corporation supporting AMBA and its mission to provide relevant and timely materials and information to AMBA member banks and subsequently the military and veteran communities. Formerly, Antia was the National Coordinator for Military Saves and a personal financial counselor at Laughlin Air Force Base, Texas. Finally, Andia is an accredited financial counselor, and has a Master of Science in Personal Financial Planning from Kansas State University. Very nice to have you here, Andia. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Next, we have Andy Madden Wren. Andy has been serving military families personally and also helping financial professionals deliver excellent services to military families and the world for many, many years. She has had a passion for helping people make sound financial decisions for 2 decades. She is on the AFCPE board of directors and recently retired after working in military contract related to personal finance. Andy's husband served in the United States Air Force as a military spouse in the United States Air Force. As a military spouse widow, she now serves as a TAPS mentor, we call it TAPS, to assist other military widows in their time of tragedy and grief. Thank you so much, Andy, for this very personal work. Andy continues to provide continuing education to financial professionals as well as mentor those in the field. We are so happy to have you on board, Andy.
It's great to be here today.
Last but not least, because he's the only gentleman, he had to come last. We have Tom Whitty. Tom is a principal financial planner and wealth management advisor, Perusia Life Matters LLC. He's also an under treasurer, Michigan Conference of Seventh-day Adventist Church. He has been a senior financial analyst for Kellogg and financial advisor with Wells Fargo. As a certified Kingdom advisor, a chartered financial consultant, a registered Series 7 and 66, and licensed life and health insurance, variable life, and annuities professional, Tom provides Bible based and morally sound planning, advisory, and consultative services to individuals, families, and small businesses in, in retirement, investment, insurance and risk, college education, and 401k rollovers. We have a great team here today, including Kingdom based advisors. How wonderful is this? Well, I'm just going to dive right in. We have so much to talk about, and I don't want to waste any more time. So I will begin with you, Andia. As you may already know, um, as of July 2016, Law USC 992 requires the Department of Defense to provide comprehensive financial literacy training to all members of the U.S. Armed Forces. The Office of Financial Readiness, we refer to it as OFR, is charged to fulfill the requirements of this law. It provides training, OFR provides training at each touch point indicated in the legislation and makes personal financial managers or counselors available through family centers set up for service members. The Association of Military Banks is a huge deal in this space. We all know that. Could you please share with our viewers what the organization does and if it has a role to play in helping DoD fulfill the requirements of this?
Yes, thank you, Lydia. I appreciate the question. So first, as you asked, I'm just going to explain a little bit about the Association of Military Banks of America, or AMBA, as you mentioned, and what we do. So AMBA is an organization that represents banks that support service members, veterans, and their families, along with our counterpart that represents credit unions as well, the Defense Credit Union Council. These banks and credit unions are located on and off the installation and support the military community. In the context of financial literacy requirements that DoD and the services are charged with, the banks and credit unions that are on installations through their operating agreements are also there to provide support, not only through products and services, but also through financial education. So this can happen in a varied ways, depending on the installation. So for some, the bank really supports the efforts on a very regular basis. They may come in and provide classes in units at other locations, even at the bank itself. And for others, they're really just utilized on demand for that financial education. The good thing to remember about all of that is that the banks and credit unions that are there on the installation are there to provide another layer of support in this financial literacy effort.
Thank you so much, Andia. That was insightful. Now, why do you believe this law exists? I've been struggling to figure out why, but bearing my experience, I believe there's a reason why it exists. Is there something you think informed it? And also, would you tell us if your experience tells you a different story as relates to banking services when it comes to military families of color or people of color in general?
Yeah, so I think there's many reasons that the law exists. The first one that comes to mind is sort of the old way of teaching financial education. It's not really having a lasting effect. So when you think about new recruits, which are given, financial training at boot camp, and then again when they first reach their duty station, this is, of course, when a time that the troop is inundated with tons of training and information. So it's hard to digest all of that, let alone digest the financial components of that. So I think the decision to tie the financial education and literacy training to the life cycle of the service member, as you mentioned, these touch points, that makes a lot of sense. So, and really the focus on the individual and on their life rather than just a specific moment in time that they have a captured audience, can really have a more profound effect. So, and the industry as a whole is really moving along this concept of the individual taking more control of their financial future. So, and this starts to become more important as well in the broader picture. So that sort of brings me to my next point, which is at the same time there was a commission that was set up. There was research being done about changing the military retirement system. So as many people know, the legacy retirement system, or the high three, is being phased out. And the new system, the blended retirement system, or known as BRS, of course, it has to have an acronym. So that was happening. The opt-in time was during 2018, and so this conversation was happening around the same time. So, and that the shift to BRS and the opt-in, that included also a huge financial education component. So, and then sort of the next part of your question, I think, goes back to sort of what I said at the beginning, which is that, we're not just focusing on a group of folks, we're sort of focusing on the individual, what their background, what they're bringing to the table, who are they supporting. You might have multi-generational families that these folks are supporting. So how do we look at that on their personalized, financial journey, and wherever they're coming from, and sort of work with them, and the ability to work with those folks, with those financial counselors that are, readily available, I think is so important.
Thank you so much. It's great to know that there's Amber to take care of us with a host of many banks that are very much geared towards catering to this community. I'll move to you, Andy. The National Foundation for Credit Counseling, NFCC, everything, did a survey about financial literacy among the US military back in 2016. Among the key findings was that compared to the national population, service members are more cautious about what they spend and are more likely to save. Keep that in mind. Well, interestingly, another key finding in that same survey was that service members are more likely to rely on and perhaps misuse credit cards than US adults. Please make me understand this. In your experience, which one would you say is a true representation of financial literacy among the military currently? And if at all you have any comparisons for military families of color, tell us if there are any disparities, please.
Oh, thanks for the question. So, this is a loaded question because it's both. So, there are several reasons that military families may be careful of their spending. In general, military population, it tends to be transitory in nature. So, it's not uncommon for a service member and their family to move every 3 to 4 years if active duty.
Mhm.
A couple side effects of moving often are things that create a barrier to savings.
Mhm.
Military spouse employment and underemployment are big issues. Often, organizations don't allow the military spouse to take their job with them when they move. So, there may be costs incurred around transferring certifications and licensing from one state or one location to another. And many spouses have voiced that it can take them up to 6 months or more to find employment after they do move. Having savings to cover those expenses of a spouse no longer working is really important for military families to prepare for with their savings. On the other side of your question, it's related to credit card usage. The cost of moving can add up. Service members are reimbursed for a great deal of the cost of moving, and credit cards are typically needed for that expense. Many expenses of a move are not covered by reimbursement, and that can also be a cause of expenses adding up on credit. In my 29 years of working with the military community as a contractor and a military family member, the biggest issue I see with misuse of credit cards is typically the very young. I saw somewhere a few years ago that the average age of a service member is 24 years old. Someone under the age of 21, their first time out on their own with a steady paycheck, can get caught up in spending. Personally, I have had a military family member that spent way too much on tattoos and eating out when they first joined the military service. So I've seen it firsthand with a nephew. Um, but I've also seen that kind of spending among all races and haven't seen a different for families of color. Everyone can get caught up in spending more than they should, especially in a new environment and away from their family or their home. Young people feel like they have the freedom to spend what they want on what they want and don't often think about saving money for their future self. I've heard many military members say, I'm not going to live long enough until I can retire anyway. So they don't see savings as a need sometimes. Another area that costs money when service members and their family members want to go visit family, that's another one. They're often far from home, and airfare and other costs of travel to go back home adds up. Many will use their credit cards to do that. And often, if there's like a family emergency, somebody, a parent or a grandparent or something is ill or has passed away, they'll spend money that they just don't have saved to do that, and that's often on a credit card. So when it comes to financial literacy of the military in general, things are improving. More and more senior leaders are sharing the importance of financial education. If leaders can role model financial well-being and encourage their units to seek guidance from the professionals provided as a benefit to them, then they'll continue to see an increase in financial literacy in the military community.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's very, very interesting, by the way. Something that Kimberly said in the chat. We spend more on credit because of PCS. PCS, permanent change of station. For those like Yvonne and Tom who might not know what every abbreviation is in the military. Well, let's move on from that. We know from Blue Star Family's 2021 Military Family Lifestyle Survey that financial issues or stress was a top stressor for 39% of respondents. I'm not sure if it relates to the extra financial burden placed on military families, like constant moves, you say that, and an inadequacy of allowance, or a lack of financial literacy that results in this stress. Well, what do you think would be, where would we attribute this?
Well, I mentioned some of the leading issues related to frequent moves far from
Mm-hmm.
home,
Yeah.
but there are definitely other challenges that are a common concern.
Mm-hmm.
Student loan debt is often one of the debts a service member has before they join the military. Some may have gone to college and decided it wasn't for them. They didn't graduate. They might come into the service enlisted, and then they have often large amounts of student loans that they have accumulated that they need to now pay off. Officers also come into service with student loan debt oftentimes. So, financial counselors are available to help service members reduce and eliminate debt, as well as assisting in all other areas of personal finance. But service members are not always aware of the financial counselors on installation and how they're a free benefit to them with all areas of financial education and literacy. Military families often have children and a family at a young age. The cost of raising children is expensive and it can add to the financial stress a military family experiences,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're getting ready to move or they've just relocated. So, no matter the financial situation of our service members and their families, I personally believe that instead of talking about all the things that people have done to hinder their finances, we need to put a positive spin on talking about how we connect with the financial professionals available on installation. It needs to be a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if a service member is going in to talk with somebody outside the military, they would be charged $125 to $250 an hour. That's just a small range. It could go a little bit less or more, to get the financial education and counseling that they could get for free on the installation. This is a very underutilized benefit. Talking to them about the power of compound interest really gets people excited about saving. The fact that all new entering service members are in the blended retirement system now, as Andia mentioned a moment ago, helps them save for their future self. They have a combination, or they have a contribution that they make, and they're matched by the government. If they decide not to remain in the military, this TSP, Thrift Savings Plan, is like a 401k account. It can be transferred to another retirement account or left in the TSP as long as they have at least $200 when they leave the military. They can work with the installation professional to develop a plan to pay down their debt, learn about their investments or investments in general, and make smart goals for their finances moving forward. The education is available to all service members, no matter age, rank, or race.
Thank you so much, Andy. That answers even the next question that I had, like what can be done? What can they do? So thank you so much for getting in there. If you're joining us right now, you have heard some of the information, from Andy. Please, please, please share what you know and also just take it seriously and do something with it. I'm glad to move on to Yvonne. You have heard what the situation could be in the military. As someone with over 3 decades of financial experience, and in particular sharing this within local communities, please share with us what you think the situation is generally. Are there differences when race is considered? And what do you do if there's a situation to remedy?
Well, thank you. That's very interesting information and good information from Andy
Mhm.
and Andrea. I grew up on a military base. My father was in the Air Force for his entire career. I was even born on a military base more than those 3 decades ago. So I understand the lifestyle of the military, and as a military dependent, and the folks who actually worked with and for my dad. A lot of them are really, really young, 18, 17, 18, and 19 years old. Sometimes when they come into the military, that's the first time they're leaving home. They don't know how to budget. They don't know how to save. And they may have gotten an incentive to come into the military, a big check. So I live in Norfolk, Virginia, where one of the largest Navy bases is here. So if they live on the ship or if they don't live on the ship, they have a really, really big car, a very big sports car. They can't really afford that car, but you can get a car. If you're in the military, they're going to get you a car. And that car will sit there. And they also have the largest television you have ever seen in your life. So they're all car and they're all television. And they hadn't really thought about it because they got this big check. And now you've got to start paying on it. And so teaching them before they come in or when they come in, before they make this big expenditure with their money, what to do with their money, how to save. And what I teach with my young ones, I call them all young, that's anybody under the age of 30, is to when you get paid, when every bit of money that you get paid, pay yourself also. Set up that account in your own name. And even if you're a couple, a spouse, if their spouse is working, if the spouse is not working, everybody should have an account in their own name and have access to their own money. When I get paid, when I get any money, tax refund or whatever, I pay whatever I need to pay, my mortgage, bills, and I pay Yvonne. Yvonne always gets paid out of every single check that comes to Yvonne. and you should make a habit of doing that. If you're trying to train your kids to save money, give them an allowance, even if it's a little bit. And then when you go out to eat, say everybody's going to be spending their own money. And if they're teenagers, some and even younger, suddenly they don't want to go out to dinner because they're going to have to spend their own money. So it teaches them to use and save their own money. So I talk to them about basic savings and basic budgeting and living within your means. And I have some forms that we'll have at the very end to really show you how to get started with saving and budgeting. And you can make copies and use it for all members of your family. Have everybody put down their money, what they have, how they're saving it, and what makes a difference. And as far as race, I think it's more at that level than race is class, because you don't have mentors. A lot of them don't have mentors at home. Nobody was telling them how to save their money. They really don't have people telling them how to save money. So, and some of the younger and some of the enlisted, having mentors would make a difference, but it more boils down to class than exclusively race.
Thank you, Yvonne. Those are great insights. Now, how easy or difficult is it for you to bring up this topic? I know for myself, especially in settings where you might be seen as, you think you know it all or you're better than me. For example, husband, wife, sibling, child, relative. Tom here is my brother. Trust me, having financial discussions with him is one of the most difficult things. You know, initially I would be like, oh, Tom thinks he knows everything, money. Okay, 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 say it. Now, what would be your tips for having such a discussion? I think sometimes those closest to us are the hardest to advise.
Well, I've been called a know-it-all, and I actually embrace that. So I don't really care. I always have, even as a teenager, I've embraced just being a know-it-all, but not the thinking I'm better. They always throw that in because there are always those digs. But actually, when you have it as a discussion and not like you're lecturing somebody, people know when they're not managing their money. They know they can't manage money. They were always coming to me, even as a teenager. I remember one time my father and mother were talking. They never talked about money with children. And people should talk about money in front of their children sometimes. You don't have to tell them how much you have because they can't really conceive of, $1 million or $100 or whatever. But talk about some of the issues and how things cost money and whether or not you have money. And so I was working because I was sitting one time on the sofa and I needed these jeans. And I told my father, I said, I really need money to get these jeans. And he looked at me and he said, have you ever thought of getting a job? And I looked at him and said, actually, no, the thought never occurred to me. Until he said that, the thought never occurred to me to work and get my own money. So then I thought about it. I said, maybe I'll get a job. And I was very thrifty with my money once I started working. I've been working ever since that time, as a matter of fact. And one time they needed money for car insurance or something. And we're sitting down and I'm just not paying attention. And then suddenly I said, well, how much money do you need? And my mother was ready to jump in. She's a child. She doesn't need to know our business. That kind of situation is always in homes. And my father said, I need $300. I said, I'll go upstairs and get it. So I went upstairs, got the $300 and gave it to him. And I never mentioned it to him, but my father looked at me a little bit differently after that. There was a little bit of
Respect
or something that I got here. Yeah, it was. For just being there. And I never, ever mentioned to them, remember how I had to help you? Those type of things cause problems. So.
Oh, thank you so much for putting perspective on that. Now, Tom, tell us something. We have been talking about financial literacy, military, outside the military, what's going on. But what we haven't done is define what financial literacy is. Tell us, what is financial literacy? What does this thing entail? And when, in your opinion, would someone be described as financially literate?
Yeah. Thank you, Lydia, for having me in this forum. And I'm so glad to partner with these ladies here who are well experienced in the area. And what happens in the military happens also out here, not in the military. Yeah. From my perspective, financial literacy is pretty much knowing and having an understanding of money and how money works. and then using the simple skills that we should have about money, like budgeting, investing, savings, and spending. A mindset to use those skills to manage your money to achieve certain goals. Really, financial literacy is about telling your money what it does and using it to achieve goals that are meaningful. When I work with people, I tell them that, look, my goal is to make you financially free. In other words, out of debt. To be financially secure, that means you have enough for yourself and to share with others, but also financially satisfied, that you're not just chasing something for the sake of chasing it, but you have a goal towards which you're chasing. But I also try to tell people that you need to live a meaningful life. In other words, use your money to achieve those goals that you have, but also help others to be able to live, like a legacy or do things that support other people, which is much larger than us. So essentially, my point is, I like to help people to make financially sound decisions, because when you are financially literate, then you can avoid a lot of the financial disasters that we see people going through here. Buying an asset, buying something like a car, letting it sit there, just burning the money, having to pay every month, but you're not using it. So you got to learn that money is what money does, and so you can avoid those unnecessary financial disasters.
Thank you, Tom. Then in that space, in that sense, I'd say I'm on my way to financial literacy. Not there. There's something
I'm so glad you're catching on now.
Thank you. Thank you for injecting me. The bug has bitten me.
Right.
Now, I like to talk about the ratio or, people of color perspective. This is because this campaign was started in the realization that many or most families of color within the military have a negative outcome when it comes to their military life. And so we've been trying to figure out why is this, and we realize that the financial aspect is one huge one where the families of color suffer. So I wanted to ask you, are there differences that you have seen that probably are stark differences in quotes, the between the individuals or families that you deal with, that you would say would be attributed to their being of color or their background? And if there are those differences, what would those be? And if anything, what can be done to make a difference?
All right. Well, I think to some extent there are differences, and those differences, as I believe it was Yvonne or Andy who alluded to it, it's more of class. In general, it's more of class than necessarily race or color. But also, it's also cultural. I mean, some people have certain affinity to certain things that they don't necessarily pay attention to the value of money. One of the things that you learn very quickly in financial planning is the value of money. How much you spend versus how much you receive, and what you get out of what you spend on. So I would say it's very cultural that some people find value in wearing a $300 pair of jeans and walking on $200 shoes. Yet you find some people think, hey, if I buy a $30 pair of shoes, that's really expensive, because you look at the utility of it. Some do that to be able to look like they're prosperous, and especially those who come from lower economic status. When they get jobs and when they start to make money, they want to look the part. So they try to make up for what maybe they didn't have in the past, and that goes across both in the people of color and the majority of the population. So, and some of it is also systemic, whereby people living in a certain area have access to certain services or outreach program, but people in a certain area are kind of more depressed than other places. So it's a mix of all these things. But I think in the long run, what I have seen is that there are facilities, there are opportunities for people to learn, which we need to leverage. And that's where I come in, where I try to help people to identify these areas or these opportunities, like financial literacy classes. One of the ones that I normally share with people is the Khan Academy. It's all free. You can take your time, watch it at any time that you want. And so I think we need to just help people to realize that if it's got to be, it's got to be up to you to make that happen. And not make excuses. In spite of all the disadvantages that are there, we should be trying to make sure that we don't make excuses for people for not utilizing the available opportunities. I'm hearing now in the military that there are financial advisors, there are people who are financial counselors, but who takes advantage of those opportunities? That's not just a certain group of people only, it's a wide spectrum, but somehow the people of color tends to be more identified because there's a large majority of them who don't take advantage of those services. That's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have Kim in the chat saying, my mother, a wizard with money, has always said it's not how much you make that matters. How you spend it matters most. So it just goes back to exactly what you were saying, Tom.
That's right.
If you're joining us as a new viewer, please, we're talking about financial literacy. Share in the comment and let us know what you think. If you have any questions, we are here to answer for you. And if you have any resources you want to share, please also drop them in the chat. This brings us to what I'd say is the most important reason why we're here. What can we do to be financially literate? And I'm going back to Andia. What are some of the products and services that military banks offer in a bid to increase financial literacy in this community? Any resources you might want to share? This is the time.
Great. So as you can imagine, military banks offer diverse and various products and services, right? But many banks, and we've touched on this a few times with Yvonne and Andy both, which is they have specific products that are focused on those who are financially inexperienced, those who may be credit invisible, so those that have a very thin credit file. So these can really help service members get on a good path to financial wellness. So one of the specific resources that I want to share is a program, and you mentioned it in my bio, which I'm sure everyone was riveted by. But I just want to share this program. So it's designed for veterans. So 3 years ago, the Department of Veterans Affairs and AMBA partnered to create the Veterans Benefits Banking Program, or VBBP. So the VBBP was created to help veterans get bank accounts and utilize direct deposit for their monetary benefits. So at the time that VBBP was created, the VA had shared with us that there were more than 250,000 veterans that were receiving their benefits on either a prepaid card or by paper check. And veterans were having challenges with both methods of receipt of their benefits, from checks that had a non-receipt or to egregious instances of fraud on the prepaid cards. So the VBBP currently offers 43 banks and credit unions who've committed to providing a free checking account to veterans who bring a qualified direct deposit to the account. And just one more quick thing about that too. So AMBA partnered with 3 nonprofits earlier this year to add to that program free financial counseling, credit counseling, and financial education specific to that audience. So, and that can all be found at veteransbenefitsbanking.org.
I'm going to type that in the chat right now.
Thank you. It's kind of a mouthful. But
Veterans
Benefits Banking.org. wellbeing.org. So veterans and benefits are both plural.
Is that it?
That is
There
it.
you go. Okay, guys, there's a great resource for you. Head on there. Thank you so much. And I'm going to keep adding some more. So keep checking in the chats and click. It's just a link and everything will be open to you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Andy, please share with us some of the financial services you've shared over the years and you definitely continue to. What impact have you seen it have on service members, veterans, spouses, and military families?
Well, hopefully I won't get bumped out again. I just came back. So, using the financial professional provided by the government to the service member is something I share with as many as I can, and that's a great start. Financial counselors love it when someone comes in to learn more, whether they come in to review a financial decision, create a spending plan, make a debt elimination plan, or teach them about investing for the future. The financial counselors on installation are there to assist. And I'm going to give you more information on that in a second. So, getting the leaders in the community to see how important finances are for military families is important. I know that there are a great deal of requirements that every unit needs to accomplish each and every month throughout the year. But if someone's finances are causing them stress, then they can't focus on the mission. If they have their money in order, the focus on the mission is much more likely to be accomplished. The Office of Financial Readiness has a great deal of information and resources available on its website. That's the finredlearning.org. That website is only a couple of years old, but it has a wealth of information. There are so many links to other resources and approved government resources and programs. They have MilSpouse Money Mission. They have all kinds of things that link from there. It's my number one go-to for people to start digging in to learn more on their own. Military One Source has things available to military families through its MWR library that are free also. Morningstar, Consumer Reports. There's other things in their online libraries. And there's just so many things that they can get there as a program to assist them. It's a great resource for families too. I suggest people get their account set up and explore what is available through that portal. There's nothing like seeing the weight lifted off of someone that walks out of your class or out of a financial counseling session because they feel hope. They feel that they're understood, that somebody understands their finances and they understand their finances. They have goals, they have a plan, and for how to implement those goals. It makes a huge impact on everything they do each day and how they accomplish their mission as a service member. The military spouse is part of the team very often. I know a lot of spouses that run the household finances, and they can take advantage of all the education and counseling available to the service member as well. So knowing that during a deployment, your spouse is on track with the financial goals you've set up as a family helps with the mission as well.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was so much, Andy.
Sorry for my helper here.
Yeah, he's a cute helper too.
I'm trying to keep him off, but he said no.
I mean, it is Halloween. I feel like not having a black cat would be weird.
He just wanted to remind you it was Halloween. There you go.
Exactly. Before we come to you, Tom, Yvonne, please share with us some of the topics you share with your audiences and what has been the impact that you've seen so far. What would you like to tell our audience to start thinking about?
I like for them to know whether they're in the military or not. And I try to, even for the young people, and for people of color, I try to mainstream them for their finances because money is money. As Tom was talking about, you've got to have these, a Chanel bag, $300, $400 shoes. And I tell some of my clients, the only people buying those things are the very rich and the very poor. Nobody else is buying those things. So try to mainstream yourself. So what I do is I talk to them about how their credit affects different aspects of their life, how their personal finances will carry them through when they get out of the military, or even while they're in the military. It will affect not necessarily their employment because they are in the military, but insurance, buying furniture, student loans, all of that. Your credit affects that. And so I recommend that all people know where they stand credit wise, because you have the protection of the military right now, but you still need to know where you stand credit wise. And so www.annualcreditreport.com will give you a free credit report, not your score, but it will give you a free credit report from all 3 credit reporting agencies in the country. So the East Coast pretty much uses Equifax, the West Coast uses Experian, and the Midwest uses TransUnion. But when you order your credit report from this annualcreditreport.com, you will get your report from all of them. And all of the information needs to be the same on all of them. While you're deployed, while you're off in college, you just never know. Someone may have stolen your identity. And it happens more often than you know. But if you run your credit report and there are things on there that are not yours, then you need to investigate that. They will give you a code, and you can say, I don't have an account at Macy's. Here you've got thousands of dollars and things that were charged at Macy's. And instead of you're calling Macy's, which is not going to do you any good, you're going to be transferred all over the creation. You go back to the annualcreditreport.com, and they will give you this code or number just for you. And you say, I do not have a Macy's card. And then they will go to Macy's. And if Macy's cannot prove that it is you, then they will take it off of your credit. So in the meantime, you still are going to have to deal with the identity theft, but that will not affect your credit. So I talked to them about doing that. A lot of people come out of the military and want to have their own business. 42% of all businesses are formed by small businesses, and more than half of those are formed by Black women in general, or for small businesses. And so your credit has to be good in order to do business, because you are going to be looked at as your business, no matter how much money your business starts making. Unless you're a Fortune 500 company, then you don't have to personally sign on it. But otherwise, if you're a small business, your personal finances and your personal credit is going to be a factor in your business being able to grow and your business being able to operate. So I cover all of those things in my classes and make sure that the audience is aware of identity theft, creditreport.com, and handling their own finances.
Thank you, Yvonne. Guess what? I've learned about annualcreditreport.com from you today. I've never known about it. So even for me, this is really a great learning experience.
You get one report free every year from them. But over COVID, they were allowing it even a couple times a month, because fraud was so rampant with unemployment benefits and COVID. So they may be going back to a year, but in the meantime, if you haven't done it in a year, you should probably do it.
Thank you. I'll definitely check that out.
Lydia, just to piggyback on Yvonne's thing with the credit card, one thing I've done well and I've helped others do is to make sure that if you are not looking for loans or credit, freeze your accounts. So with those freezes, you have a code that you're given that if someone tries to get a credit in your account, try to get a new account, whatever, they can't get access to it. And then you only unfreeze it when you are looking to borrow, and then you can freeze again.
That's a good idea. But also, if you have a freeze on your credit, it makes it difficult to open up a bank account. So if you need to open up a bank account, that it will be held because that freeze is on the account. If something happens to your spouse and you're trying to get the benefits, that freeze on the account is going to affect your ability to get access to some of the joint money sometimes. But it's still worth it to look into doing that.
Yeah, I guess do it when you know why you're doing it. Yeah. Thank you so much. As Andy spoke, Laura was quick to say, yes, male spouses run the finances. I took over during my first deployment and never gave up that duty. I'm the financial advisor to a family. Kudos to you, Laura, and keep doing it. Keep doing it. Tom, where did Tom go?
Yeah, power code. Yeah. Sorry, I left my power code somewhere. Oh, it's running out.
It's okay. In the same.
On the surface. Sorry, go ahead, Lydia. I'm sorry.
Yep. As we try to figure out financial literacy, I would like you to tell us. Of course, we've learned how someone can be financial literate from you, but what are some of the things you'd advise as first steps? Yvonne has talked about the things she shares with her community. What are some of the services you offer as a financial planner, advisor? What are the first steps?
For me, the very first step is to know your financial status. You need to know how much money is coming into you and how much is going out. Because once you have that picture, you're going to be real about that, and that includes all your incomes and all your expenses. Now, the best way to look at that is to have a budget, and that budget you need to track it on a monthly basis, and also be able to track your expenses. Sometimes you go like, oh, it's $5 here, you spend money without thinking about it. But when you start tracking it, you can see. But I mean, people use cards, and I use my credit card all the time. I pay it off at the end of the month because I have a disciplined way of using my card, and make sure the money paid at the end of the month. But there are people who I tell, I'm sorry, you may have to withdraw cash and use cash, because when you use cash, it helps you to see how much is going out, and that's a little bit more painful for people, and they go that way. But very important, if anything happens any time, you need to have an emergency fund. Usually it is recommended you have between 3 to 6 months. But as you see what's happening in our society right now, nobody knows what's the next thing going to happen. So if your job is not, if you don't have a regular salary, you don't want to keep up to a year worth of expenses in an account which you can access very quickly when needed. Thank you. Let me just put this on before my guys here. All right. Okay, so we're back now. I don't have to worry. Now, once you have a budget, now people have a problem with their budgets because they think that a budget is something that constrains your ability to spend. And I always ask the question, who prepares the budget? It's me who prepares the budget. So I'm also the one who can change it. For me, a budget is a tool that tells me, that gives me the power to tell my money where to go and what to do. When you think about it in that way, you get more empowered. The other thing is, if you are employed, especially if you're still young, start early investing in your 401k, 403b, 457, if your company or your employer has those facilities. There's free money that they give you in matching that you should not let go at all, okay? Now, I do always do illustrations for people and ask them and tell them, look, if we take this illustration, you save $100 a month for the next 10 years, then you stop saving anymore. You can actually have about $300,000 by the time you're retiring in that account without putting any more money. But now, compared to someone who starts 10 years later, they'll put in a lot of money, almost like 30,000, but they will never reach where you are just because you started early. And I can give you those illustrations. So you need to have that discipline to put that money early and keep on being very steady and consistent. What people want is a big account, but they don't realize that those big accounts are an accumulation of small things put in consistently and regularly. That discipline is very, very important. And also, instead of running to go and buy lottery tickets, which is another thing that people do all the time, you just need to learn the discipline of saving, because any dollar saved is a dollar earned. Okay. I like this when someone asked me this question. Tom, what would you take if I gave you $1 million today, or I give you a penny which doubles every day for 30 days? And it got me thinking. And then, I thought it was a tricky question. So I said, well, I'm going to have the penny that doubles every day. Now, when I did the math, I realized that if you have that penny that doubles every day for 30 days, at the end of the month, you have $5 million, and you can do the illustration. So I tell people, save every little that you can and add it to a place where it can do something for you, that it grows. If you can be able to invest, that is very important. But also you need to invest in your own financial literacy. And that's why I share that Khan Academy. But also, if there's an opportunity to go to learn from an advisor or a financial advisor. Now, one of the things I do is comprehensive financial planning for people. And some people don't like to get personal, but I get very personal with people because I'm like, I want to be able to help you. And one of those things is they don't want to, the things that they want to keep secret. But I'm like, look, if you don't open up, then you may not get the best advice. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help you to walk through these things. And one of those things I tell people is you need to think beyond just yourself. Because when you think about yourself, there's only so much that you can accumulate. After that, it loses utility. You need to invest yourself in things that are bigger than you and help others become as you, if you can be able to make it. So those are some of the things where I help people to start with a budget, start saving your emergency fund, and then invest every money that you can get, save whatever you can get. Another thing I tell people is be frugal, but not cheap. There's a difference. If you're only chasing the saving, you may actually spend more money chasing the saving. Be frugal, but compare the cost versus benefits of what you're trying to be frugal. For example, why buy a $10 piece of slippers that you will get, which will get cut in a week? I'd rather pay something $30 and I can use it for a year. You get what I'm saying? So be frugal, but don't be cheap.
Thank you, Tom. That's very great advice. And thank you for bringing some of us along with you on the journey. I know our time is about an hour in, so I will not go into the details of the other question, but it was definitely about what are the first steps. So I would like to ask our panelists if you have anything to include in what Tom has said as first steps of what someone can do financial literacy wise, and what advice you would like and parting shots for us. I'll start with you, Yvonne, because I think you shared some things that you wanted our audience to know.
Yes. Stop what you're doing this evening and write down everything that you owe and pay on a monthly basis. You think in your mind, well, I know I pay this, I know I pay that. When you write it down and you're looking at it, it looks a little bit differently. And you're like, whoa, do I need that? But write down everything that you have to pay and write down everything that you save. Also, to get you started and get everybody in your family started, take a little pad like this, and for a week, write down every penny that you spend. And you will be surprised how much money you waste. Hopefully, you'll be pleased that you have not wasted a lot of money. When I do it for students, I had some college students coming in 2 weeks in a row. I gave them the little pads. The next week, all of them came in and they were really shocked at how much money they spent on food when they were on the food plan at school.
Right.
But they spent a lot of money on food that they did not have to spend. So do that. And I submitted some forms, and she can give you the forms at the end. Create a monthly budget. Separate your wants from your needs, and really kind of determine what it is that you really need and really want. Do you need every streaming service just to see one show? Maybe not. So just, it's really just that basic. write it down so you can look at it and give that form to everybody in your family so that they can write down what they spend also, and your kids can write down what they spend. It really makes a difference just to see where you are so that you'll know where you're going.
Thank you, Yvonne. As you spoke, I shared the monthly budget you shared with us and the spending plan worksheets. They're all there, so you can click on that and it will help you. I'm sure it will help me. I have a tough time with budgeting, but probably if I start small like that, I
Mhm.
will get more, I'll get better with my budgeting.
You will.
Andia, you have any insights, any advice?
Yeah, so I actually wrote down like 3 things to share, but
Mhm.
they've already been talked about. So annualcreditreport.com was actually one of the ones that I was going to share as well.
Yeah.
And just the statistic that 1 in 5 credit reports have errors on them. So that should make everybody go and look. I usually suggest to folks that they do it like in their birth month, or they can do it every quarter because you do, especially with military families, right? We move from coast to coast, right? So we can have credit files through Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So that's a good one to think about. And then my other one was, save less than you or spend less than you earn, which is a very simple concept. And save for the future, which we've already kind of talked about, but I like to talk to folks about this in a very near future, midterm future, long future. So you're not really thinking about just because a lot of people say save for the future and they think retirement. But I want folks to think about near term future, like you guys have already mentioned, emergency savings. You don't know what's coming, $500 deductible on your car, $1,000 deductible on your car, new tires that you're going to need. And that, those fancy cars, well, hopefully they're buying maybe a used car, but they might need new tires no matter what, right? So that's something you always have to think about. So that's sort of your short term. And then your midterm is that furniture when you move and all of a sudden your house is twice as big as it was before. I mean, that happened to us. We also went the other direction where we were moving from one base house to the next one that shrunk in size. But you're always moving. You're always, it's always changing. And so, and then your transition out of the military, that's sort of a midterm future, not, only 80% of the military stays for 20 years. So you're likely going to have that transition out of the military and not a long-term future, right? So you need to be thinking about that. And then of course, just like Tom said, you're going to be thinking and you're going to be investing because the younger you is going to be a happier, compounding interest future you, right? So I'll just leave that there. I know we're already past our time. So, but yeah, it's funny because when we all come together like this, we all tend to hit the same topics, right? Those 3 important things we want folks to do. You did drop one thing in the chat, which is milldocs.org. It's a financial preparedness kit that's totally free. Everything is just online for somebody to put together all of their documents and like a physical, tangible thing you can like carry with you if there's a hurricane or a PCS or a forest fire. I mean, whatever is happening in our crazy world today. But that was actually put together by a bunch of experts and it's free. People can just go and pull the resources and put that together. So just check that out. And that's it. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Andia. Andy, tell us
All right.
what you want us to do.
I got the 10-second. Okay, so I think one of the first steps is that people need to realize that even financial professionals are always learning something new. So there's nothing negative about learning something new, reaching out to your financial readiness installation professionals, personal financial counselors. You can find those on the FinRed Learning website. And if you're not interested in working with a financial professional that is specific to you at the military that's free, you can go to an accredited financial counselor at findmyafc.org or findanafc.org. And that's just, a big thing is don't stop learning. Soak up all the knowledge you can from reputable sources.
Yes, I wanted to say there's so much information nowadays. If the source is not the right one, you might just be lost. Thank you guys. Kimberly said she wanted to buy tickets. Kimberly, do not buy a ticket. You're trying to make 1 billion, the chances are 0.000. I don't know how many zeros. Okay? Go the penny way. Compound that penny. Tom said. All right.
Actually, I have a lot of lottery winners in my portfolio, so just one ticket, Kimberly.
Yeah. Hey, Lydia, it's very important for people to remember that
Mm.
seasons change. And when it starts to rain, you want to know that you have an umbrella.
Mhm.
You don't have an umbrella, you're going to get soaked wet. So that's why these financial literacy, financial skills are important for us to be able to have an umbrella. When it starts to rain, we can have ourselves covered.
Wow, that's a very nice way to like visualize it. Thank you,
Right.
Tom. Thank you so much, my panel, for being here today. Thank you for our listeners. This is recorded, so you can come back to it anytime. It will be on the website. It will be on the Facebook, LinkedIn, um, YouTube. It will be everywhere for you to watch it. I'll also personally post it on my LinkedIn, and my panelists will share them on their LinkedIn if they want to as well. So thank you for coming today. We will I'm open for you to reach out if you want any of these resources again sent to you. And if you want to leave us a comment, if you want to share another resource with us, I'll be very happy to engage with you. Our next Money Monday session is on November 14th, and we'll be discussing debt. Why? I want to learn why this continues to be the number one stressors for our military and the American public at large. We also want to figure out how to manage it. I don't think any of you want to miss it. I don't want to miss it. I want to be here to hear it for myself. So thank you again. And from everyone at Blue Star Families and from my panelists, have a great day. As always, if not me, who? And if not now, when? See you again soon. Bye bye.